Hi, Tana, you okay?
I am. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time out and speaking on the platform.
Oh, this is fantastic. And what time is it where you're at?
It is 10 o'clock in the
Oh,
evening.
wow. So you're a night owl.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always on either the Eastern or Pacific time zone, yeah, so definitely not your regular 9 to 5.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
No problem, Tana. For everyone who might be unaware of your amazing work, if you'd just like to give a brief explanation about the wonderful work you do at the Amen clinics. Obviously, you've got a best-selling New York Times best-selling previous books, and all your wonderful expertise within surrounding mental health, surrounding gut health, just overall mental health and well-being. If you can just give us a little explanation and just regarding your new book, if that's okay.
Oh, I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much. So at Amen Clinics, we look at people's brains. So we actually do brain scans and we look at the health of your brain to see if it's too high in activity, if it's normal activity, if it's too low in activity, and we connect that with people's behavior. So it's easy to call people bad. It's harder to ask why. We look at that through the lens of 4 circles: biological, what's going on with, did you have a brain injury, an infection, hormone imbalance, things like that. Psychology, are you managing your mind and how you think? Your social circle, like who you hang out with matters, right? Because people are contagious. And the spiritual circle, what gives your life meaning and purpose? Purposeful people live longer and they get well faster. And so that's what we do at Amen Clinics. And right now, as you might imagine, with the pandemic, depression is more than tripled. And, we've had more kids, teenagers committing suicide than we have in many, even as long as I can remember. So it's a really important thing, especially right now. And it's been a busy time. And I appreciate you saying that. So I am vice president of Amen Clinics. And yes, this is my 10th book. My new book is a memoir. It's my 10th book. My previous books have all been on nutrition and lifestyle. So this is veering away from that and talking about overcoming anxiety, trauma, depression, and grief. And I did not do it knowing we were going to have a pandemic, obviously, but I don't believe in coincidence. So hopefully it will help some people who are struggling right now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And just regarding the book, you say it's a memoir. So you obviously delve into your childhood and everything that works for you. What sort of reader are you wanting to pick up this book, and who's your target audience? Because we do get a lot of people as well, Tana, on the platform who've had past traumas and are really stuck in the past. So yeah, who's the book aimed for?
So it's called The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child. And it's really about what, obviously the title sort of says a lot. But the part that surprised me, we thought the target audience was definitely going to be 35 to 65-year-old women. And what surprised me was that my best testimonials so far have been from men. Yes, I've had a ton of amazing comments and testimonials from women, but I was surprised that men, it would resonate as well as it did with men. Men who have gone through trauma, in childhood, who have been through abusive families, things like that, who have recovered or are recovering. So in fact, I got one beautiful testimonial from Paul Martinelli, who said that it gave him a voice where he didn't feel like he had one. And so that's sort of the audience, is people who have either experienced significant trauma in their childhood, or also people who are now struggling with the idea of whether or not they should help people that they have sort of drawn boundaries around from their past. So you finally get out, you claw your way out, you finally have a life that you are happy with maybe, but now people come back from your past that need your help, and you have said, no, your life is too chaotic, I've gotten myself out, and you don't want to do it. And you're being called to do it. And so how do you do that in a healthy way? So that's the other target audience, is like sometimes you're asked to help when you don't want to. See, the subtitle is How Persistence, Grit, and Faith Created a Reluctant Healer, because I was certainly the reluctant healer for a while. And so how do we do that?
Yeah. How long would you say, obviously, getting over trauma is an ongoing process. How long would you say that it was there like an eye-opening moment in your own experience where you thought, yeah, I've actually got over this, or would you say it's a continued journey and different for everyone?
Oh, I think it's different for everyone. I wish I could say I were that smart that I had a moment. No,
Yeah.
no, it was a process.
Yeah.
And for me, it was sort of like I hit rock bottom, and then my rock bottom had a basement, and then that had a sub basement. And then I began to pull myself out. And they say, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that began to happen. I began to have different teachers appear and these mentors, but it was a process. It didn't happen overnight. And so that's sort of what the book is about. There's these learning moments and sort of the things that helped me along the way. And the purpose of the book wasn't to just give people a voyeuristic look into my ugly, gritty, dirty life that was very messy. It was to show that there's hope. It was to show that, you know, what worked for me. I know I'm not the only one. I know that I'm actually not that uncommon. So that was sort of the point.
No, and that I can really resonate to that with the community we have here regarding anxiety, because obviously what one person's journey can really pull someone out who might feel isolated and alone. So yeah, getting that story of achievement and everything that you've been through as well, it is so important. And just regarding the book, would you say that this is your best work yet? Because obviously you've done 10 of them. Where does this one stand up?
So it's so different. So here's the thing. When you write a book on nutrition or on lifestyle, which is what I normally do, I do the lifestyle stuff for our clinics, because people who get their food and nutrition and exercise right do better with mental health. They just do. Those are our best testimonials. But when you write a book like that and someone doesn't like it and they criticize you, you know, okay, it might not feel great, but no big deal. If someone criticizes your personal story and that's something so vulnerable that wasn't easy to write, that's more painful. That's harder. So this one is, I'd say it's the most important work for a lot of reasons. It was the most vulnerable. I mean, the other work is more a how-to. This is is full of lessons, but it's more raw. It's more, this was me trying to resonate and meet people where they're at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. What would you say the most challenging part of writing the book was? Because I'm guessing you had to really delve into some really past experiences that I imagine would bring a lot of emotion up.
Yeah, there were a few things that were really hard. One of them is exactly what you said, digging into the past. Even though I had done a lot of work, I had done therapy, I had done all these, you know, amazing techniques and things to overcome my past. I feel like it was in the past. But when you begin to dig deep, and you have to, if you want the writer to really get the experience and you want to do justice for them, you really have to write it in a way that takes you back. And so that was not an easy thing to do. There were several stories where it took me a while to actually get through it. That was one part of it. The second part that was challenging is writing a memoir when people are still alive. So when you've got a messy family, and mine is like Jerry Springer, it was Jerry Springer material. That's not easy to do. Getting other people on board with it is that was a challenge. So there were moments that were hard, where I had hard conversations with family members, and we had to work through some stuff. And ultimately it ended up being a very good thing, a very healing thing, even for my family. But the positive thing was that it helped me to sort of look at all of those challenges through an adult's perspective. So trauma gets stuck at the age that you experience it. So if you experience, like, I have one story in the book where my uncle was murdered when I was 4, and a drug deal gone wrong. And it was a very traumatic, just the whole event was very traumatic, just the way my family handled it, to how I was sort of shoved aside. And that's very traumatic. So I remember that from a 4-year-old's perspective. But when I had to write it and really get into the detail, and then I had to interview family members about that to make sure that I had it all really correct, all the details correct, I suddenly began to process it as an adult. And that was really important in my healing process. It was really great.
No, that's really, really insightful. Just regarding trauma and anxiety disorders, obviously there is a link between both. Are you just able to explain what the link is and why there's such a link between both?
So I'm not sure I can do it as well as my husband might. My husband, Dr. Daniel Amen, obviously is a neuropsychiatrist. So he would give you the very nitty gritty medical explanation for this. But I can tell you that people experience trauma in different ways, right? So trauma is not always one thing in the brain. If you look at what happens is your emotional centers light up. They're on fire, like PTSD. What happens is the emotional centers of your brain, they light up. So some people might experience more of a depression type feeling when that happens. Other people are going to experience more of an anxiety type feeling when that happens. It just depends. Or you might get triggered at different times by different things. But it's really because those emotional centers are really lit up, if that makes sense. And when you're faced with that same type of situation again, it's a trigger. And it can sort of take you back to that. So that's why we often will experience things like anxiety or depression in connection with that trauma. That's really a very simplistic explanation. But really it's about your amygdala and your emotional centers in your brain getting hijacked, if you will, by these feelings that got stuck, a long time ago.
No, I think that's a really good explanation. And often just like a simple explanation like that can really speak to an audience as well. So I think that was a really good way of putting it. Regarding obviously a lot of people who'll be reading the book will be people who have had past traumas and maybe not overcome it. What advice would you give to these people in showing that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and how would you motivate them that it's not always going to be like it may be at the moment?
Oh, if there's anything I could tell people, it's that. So if there's anything I could tell people listening right now, we are in unprecedented times. People are struggling so much right now, more than they ever have, in so many different ways at the moment. And if I could tell you anything, there was a time in my life when I literally wanted to die. I used to pray that God would let me die because I was wasting oxygen on the planet. Didn't make sense for me to be here. I just had these stacked stressors that I write about in the book. And what happened was it finally got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I went through this wicked depression. I had an opportunity. I finally felt like the stuff from my childhood was getting better. And then I had this opportunity to pose for Playboy. I actually tested for Playboy and I thought, oh, okay. Even though that's not something I necessarily want to do from the standpoint of exploiting myself, because I'd had an issue with feeling like I'd been exploited in the past. But I thought, you know what? In this case, I'm going to take the money and be the one to have the last laugh. I'm going to use this for school. And then 1 month after I was told I was accepted, I was diagnosed with cancer. And then I went into, I felt like I lost everything. I had to quit school, quit my job, file for bankruptcy, and just went into a wicked depression. And at that point, I went, why am I even on the planet? There's just, I have nothing to live for. So if I could tell you anything, oh, and one last thing, my mom had brain surgery at the same time that I was going through radiation treatments. And it was just this really awful time. So what I couldn't have known back then, I could see no way out. I could see literally no way out of that mess. But what I could not have known was that that I went through then, all of that terrible stuff that I went through then, it was almost like I was just being forged in fire so that I could be doing what I'm doing now. If anyone would have just given me just a glimpse into the future, if the me now could just go back and tell the me from the time that I wanted to die, it's like, hey, hold on, write about all this stuff you're going through now, because this is the good stuff that you're going to be able to use to change people's lives. So it's pain to purpose. Like if I could tell you anything, it's like you don't know where your life might be and how you might be using the worst time in your life to be a testimony to someone else in the future.
No, I can really resonate with that, and I imagine how powerful it is as well. Like you said, in that dark time when you're feeling hopeless, and then obviously where you're at now. If you would have told yourself how you was then, you just really wouldn't have believed it at all, would you? So no. I think that's really important. Just regarding what words of wisdom would you give for people who maybe can't open up to their family, so or their friends even, so they have this past trauma, but they feel like because it's so personal to them that they can't open up to anyone. Would you give any advice on what maybe the best thing to do surrounding that would be?
So if you're having trouble opening up to your family, you know, some family, here's the truth. People have to be willing to hear what you're going to say, right?
Yeah.
So I love the saying from Byron Katie, what other people think of me is none of my business. But if you're wanting to so you have to be okay with the fact that not everyone is going to want to hear what you have to say. Not everyone is going to appreciate who you are. And I think real healing happens when you're in that place. But when you're wanting to heal some of the relationships from the past that are pretty damaged, you know, hopefully you can. I certainly was able to do some of that. I was able to heal some of those relationships. And that was a huge blessing. And that took, for me, it took therapy. It took, you know, in my case, prayer, whatever it is in your life that helps you to get to that place. And that's amazing when it happens. But I think what's important is also knowing when to have those boundaries when it's not going to happen. So there are relationships that's not going to happen. And I think for us to think that, oh, if I heal myself, everything's going to be better and all these relationships are just going to be magically healed, that's not necessarily true. And I think when you're really in a good place and grounded in your own health and your own healing journey, you begin to understand that it's okay. I'm healthy enough and I'm strong enough that I want to heal these relationships, but I have these boundaries. And if that can't happen in a healthy way, that's going to be okay too. Because there's going to be some of those relationships that aren't going to be, they're just not going to be what you want them to be.
Yeah. So I agree. And a lot of it is on your reaction as well to how they are going to be. I just picked up on you saying about obviously prayer is important to you. And I find that interesting, obviously, with the science background from yourself and your husband. Do you feel that there is place for someone to be spiritual and believe in praying and things like that, as well as having a scientific approach as well?
100%. So
Yeah.
I've never really understood the disconnect. So my husband and I both went to Christian colleges. So
Okay.
he went to a Christian medical school. I went to a Christian nursing school. And you know, it's not my place to, you've got people probably watching from all over the world, and I can respect and appreciate that. But I've never really understood the disconnect between the spiritual and the scientific, you know, parts of life. In fact, the more that I learn about science, the more that it sort of affirms my spiritual beliefs. So I've never really understood why there is a disconnect there.
Oh, that's really interesting. That was just a personal question from me, so thank you for answering that. Just obviously the horrible year that we've all had at the moment. With your expertise, what advice would you be able to give for the followers in improving their physical, the mental health, going into a new year? Almost hopefully a blank canvas for us all with the scientific improvements that we're getting. How would you say it'd be a good start to really start to improve our overall well-being?
So if you're in the United States, the first thing is turn off the news. So
Yeah.
that was
I think that's the same here as well.
Dear Lord. So the first thing I had to do was, I'm one of those people who's strongly affected by the stuff I see on the news, and I end up yelling at the TV within 5 minutes. But I think a lot of us do that because that's what the news is designed for. It's not designed to deliver the news. It's designed to be clickbait. It's designed to keep you hooked. That's how they get their sponsors. And if you understand that, then it's like, do you really want someone else having more control over your reactions than you have? I don't want someone else having that much control over me. No. This is a science for them. They know what they're doing. So I shut off the news. I literally will go on my phone, scroll for headlines, and then that's it. I don't listen to the news. I make sure that I'm praying and meditating. And it's really easy to get off track with your diet during a time like this. I know in the very beginning I did, because I've got teenagers in the house. And I know I felt so bad for them. I thought, you know, they've lost everything. I'm just not going to be the food Nazi right now. We normally eat super healthy. And I'm like, I'm just going to give in a little here and a little there. And within about 3 weeks, they were acting wonky. Like they were acting more anxious than usual, more depressed than usual. And I realized, you know, I teach this stuff. I know better. It's like food matters. Everything you put on the end of your fork matters when it comes to your mood. Food affects your mood. It affects your day-to-day decisions. So does exercise. And just because you're in the house doesn't mean you can't move your body. So if I could tell you, it's like, make sure that you're spending 5 minutes, you know, meditating. Just clear your brain. Shut off the TV. Pay attention to what you're eating, because it matters when it comes to your mood. And move your body. Just walk. If you can do nothing else, just walk.
No, definitely. And regarding you said about how important food and diet is for your mental health, and they almost say that like the stomach is like the second brain, isn't it? So I think regarding obviously the best things to eat, what would you say the worst things to eat is? Because obviously we always get shown the best things to eat regarding mood and things. What things would you advise people to really stay away from?
So the one we hear all the time is sugar. It's obvious. I mean, that's
Right.
the obvious one, but there's a reason you hear it. So sugar, processed foods, fried fats, artificial sugars. Those are the main ones. Now, we would tell you gluten. You should stay away from gluten as far as for mental health, especially. But it doesn't affect everybody the same way. So we would tell you to get off of it for several weeks, see how you feel, right? So regarding gluten, eliminate it, see how you feel for a few weeks. But definitely the main culprits, sugar, artificial sweeteners, processed foods, fried fats. Those
And
are.
would you say that's like eliminating them completely, or just really bringing them down to a certain
I
level?
never want people to feel bad if they're not perfect, but we would tell you to eliminate. So eliminate them with the idea that you don't need them in your life. They're not serving you, right? Do you want to be in an abusive relationship or not? So I often think of them as an abusive relationship.
Okay.
So people like they obsess over food and they're like, oh, I love this or I love that. Well, that's what you would say in a relationship. So love food that loves you back, not food that's beating the hell out of you, right? So love food that loves you back. So would you stay in a relationship where it's beating the hell out of you? Some of you have, some of you are, right? So ask yourself about that.
Yeah.
But it's not serving you. So if you don't do it perfectly, though, it's like, all right, so I didn't do it perfectly. I don't need to beat myself up over that either. It's like, just get back on track. So we would tell you at least 95%. 95% of the time, aim to do it, really, really well. If once in a while you don't eat something perfect, none of us do.
No.
Don't beat yourself up, just move on.
And would you say that there's a direct link between these high processed meals, sugars, and increased levels of anxiety and dips in mood?
Oh, absolutely. So what happens is, especially sugar and certain processed foods, so sugar causes rapid brain cell firing. So number one, it can cause things like aggression.
Right.
But it's not just that. It increases blood sugar and then it causes it to tank. So you get this rise in blood sugar and then a drop, right? So that alone will affect your mood pretty dramatically. And then additionally, what ends up happening is, especially if you have ADD, it's even worse. What happens is sugar increases serotonin, which makes you feel better really in the short term. Like quickly you'll feel better, which is why women with PMS, think of a woman with PMS. What does she reach for? Chocolate, wine, pasta, right? Because it instantly makes her feel better. It's giving her a boost in serotonin. What serotonin does is it drops your frontal lobes. So it actually decreases your judgment, impulse control, all of these things. When women have PMS, they're hyperfrontal. They're actually very sort of in an agitated mode, like their brain's kind of like on fire. So yes, it settles them down. But if you start out with ADD, if you start out with a brain where your frontal lobes are a little bit sleepy and you drop them more, you're not going to feel so good. You're going to make bad decisions.
Okay.
So that's why protein and healthy fat helps to boost your focus, your energy. It keeps your energy even all day long. So what you eat matters.
Definitely. And when you're talking healthy fats, you're talking things like avocado and hummus,
nuts,
maybe
seeds, nut butters.
Yeah.
So almond butter, things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's really important.
Plant-based fats.
And just regarding, you touched on how important physical health is in your overall mental health well-being. Would you say there's a certain form of physical activity that's better? So anaerobic, so running or walking, or what would you say is the best for overall mental health?
So I will answer that in 1 second, but I want to make sure people don't get so caught up in the answer here that they are like, well, I can't do that, so I'm doing nothing. So my short answer is yes to all of it. Yes, move your body. That's my short answer. My short answer is anything you do that's moving your body is going to be better than not moving your body. So if it means walking, that's what you can do because that's where you're at, or that you've got physical limitations, then walk. If it means that I like karate, that's very anaerobic. I love it. And for me, that makes me feel really good. I like interval type training where it's intense, like bursting type training. Yeah. And that tends to be the best type of training. Like ultimately that tends to be like really good for boosting blood flow to the brain. boosting metabolism. But not everyone can do that. If you've got an injury, don't use it as an excuse not to do something. So I just want you to move your body, do something, because anything you do is going to be better than not doing anything.
That's really good advice. And you said that meditation's important to you as well. So meditation and mindfulness, all things that you can do in the house in the current situation that we're in.
Oh, I had to go outside before I got on with you, because my husband, since the quarantine started, he does all of his meetings on the phone while he does laps around my house. So all the kids are doing school in their rooms, and they're like, he's got to stop. And I'm like, I know, I have an interview too. So I have to go out there and tell him, it's like, honey, you need to tone it down for an hour, right? But all day long, he's doing laps around the house. He's just making sure he's not sitting, right? So, so we're always moving. But yes, you can focus on the things you can do at home. People right now, it's so easy to focus on what you can't do. Just please focus on what you can do. Whenever someone sends me a list of everything they can't do, I'm like, within that list, I can find something you can do in between each of those things. My director of social media is a quadriplegic, and I've seen her work out, and it's intense. She's amazing. She actually, I'm envious. She pushes herself so hard, and she works out at home. And I'm like, if she can do it, it's really hard for me to really listen to excuses from myself or anyone else. If she can make herself work out that hard, with the fact that she's a quadriplegic, has a broken neck, then what excuse do I have?
No, yeah, that's really
there's something I can do, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And just obviously touching on the book, and if ever anyone wants to grab a copy, when can they grab a copy? Is it going to be available worldwide? And where's the best place that they can get it?
So yes, you can go to relentlesscourage.com, and it actually has a list of booksellers. Worldwide, I'm not sure about in other languages, but I do believe it is going to be available. I know it's available in Canada. I believe it's available in the UK through Amazon has a division that supplies to those places. In other languages, it takes a little bit of time to get out, but it is available pretty much at all booksellers. So relentlesscourage.com or any major bookseller you can go to. And I do have a really nice pre-order gift right now, even though the book comes out January 5th. Right now, with the pre-order, we have about $500 worth of gifts that we're giving away to help people with this journey of self-discovery and writing the story of their life and sort of changing how they see the people in their lives.
Oh, that's wonderful. And just regarding, obviously, your other work as well, you've got an amazing community over there on YouTube. If someone wants to have a look at the other aspects of everything that you're doing, where's the best place that they can go and support everything that you're doing?
Oh, thank you so much. So on Instagram, it's at Tana Amen. And then YouTube, you can look up Tana Amen, on YouTube, and Tana Amen BSNRN on Facebook. You can find us kind of all over. But our podcast, my husband and I do a podcast together. And that's our really, probably most active format. And that's the Brain Warriors Way podcast. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. And I'd just like to thank you again, Tana, for coming on. No, and I really urge everyone to support you with the new book, because I think your knowledge, just the whole knowledge in the family, obviously all the experience that you've been through in your past and overcome, and now willing to share that success story with people who are obviously on their own journey to recovery. I just think it's a real credit to just who you are as a person. So I'd just like to thank you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's such an honor to just be here today and talking to your community.
No, that's wonderful. I will, I'll do a story swipe up so everyone can go and support your channel. But is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up, or do you think we've covered everything? Anything that you feel that you want to add to the conversation?
Well, I really appreciate it. If anyone is interested, we are having a free virtual event on December 12th. So you can go to tanaamen.com/event. Would love to have you guys. Would love to have you with us. Just on overcoming anxiety, trauma, and grief. But other than that, I'm just very grateful.
No, that's wonderful. And you said that's on your tanaamen.com.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll do a story swipe up so everyone can go out and check you out on that. That's wonderful. But enjoy the rest of your day.
Your night.
Thank you very much. And just continue just giving us this insightful information. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
No
Bye-bye.
problem. Take care. Yeah. Bye bye.